Good afternoon, YouTube. I'm Fidelis Noga II. Today we're talking about etiology versus teleology. Let me get you to understand that these two concepts in psychology are the epitome of why people do things. And I'm going to tie this in to your lifestyle. How the Alkalign Lifestyle works is we become energized and we become aligned in our spirit, in our soul, in our body. And there has to be a balance between how we find coherence in our life and the things that we're giving out into the universe and getting back from the universe. You have to come from a level of awareness of yourself and how you respond to everything around you. So, etiology versus teleology, what does this actually mean? And this is not how you spell. Oh, okay, it's spelled like this. So it's teleology, like telephone, teleology. So both of these concepts here, I'll put down the philosophers essentially that I got these concepts from. This is Freud, stands for Sigmund Freud. I believe Freud's name is spelled F-E-R-U-D. So that's Freud, and this is his past accomplice, which was Alfred Adler. Both of these individuals are very well known in the field of psychology. But I believe that we've adopted as a whole the majority, a Freudian perspective on how our minds work, but the Adlerian perspective of how our minds work is more accurate. And here's why I say that. Etiology. This is the study about cause. It asks what led to this behavior. Why do I do these things? What is the thing that caused me to do this? Basically saying its past causes lead to future outcomes. It's all about cause and effect. In medicine, they refer to this as the origin of a disease. So what caused you to have this disease? Oh, it was you ate this thing and it caused you to do this. Or you drink this potion or whatever and it caused you to do that. That's essentially what this is. So in psychology, it's often used to explain behavior based on past trauma or past events. So think, I act this way because of what happened to me. I act this way because my parents ignored me. I act this way because I grew up in poverty. That's why I'm poor. I act this way because I was sexually assaulted as a kid, and because of that, this is why I behave this way. It's essentially saying that trauma exists and everyone is an effect of their past causes. So your past defines who you are today. That's what it means. Okay? Now, teleology, on the other hand, is an Adlerian perspective. You can find this in the books The Courage to be Disliked, The Courage to be Happy, where the philosopher is speaking to a young person and he's basically interviewing him about why he believes these concepts, the young person that interviewing the philosopher, why he believes these concepts about Alfred Adlerian psychology. In teleology, it's about the purpose or the goal. It's asking, what is this for? It's rooted in the idea of things happen for a reason or toward an end. So in philosophy, it's a study of design or purpose in a natural phenomenon. Okay, it's all about just natural properties. It's natural. So think, I act this way because I'm aiming for something. Okay, so I'll write down the statement. So I'll put down, I act this way because I am aiming for something. So it's saying I'm poor because I'm aiming to be poor. I'm sad because I'm aiming to be sad. I'm single because I'm aiming to be single. I'm married because I'm aiming to be married. Whatever you can think of, it's just saying that you are that thing because you are going towards the goal of being that thing. That's how that works. So in comparison, think about a really common cause, where in etiology, you would say focus is past causes. So someone would say, I'm anxious because of my childhood trauma. When I was a kid, my mom used to do this and my dad used to do this. And so because they did this, I ended up like this. So it can explain patterns, but it's like, it's saying that it's all about determinism. It's all about saying that this thing happens, so this thing's gonna happen. So it's just leaving you a means to, so if I put my hand like this, my blade's gonna kick or something like that. You're trying to figure out a system, making a person like a machine instead of a person, an actual person. Okay? In teleology, think of the same thing where it says you have future purpose. So it's about not past causes, it's about future purposes. So I'm anxious not because of my childhood trauma. I'm anxious because I want to avoid failure. That's why I'm anxious. So it encourages goal setting. It encourages planning. It encourages actual honesty, because you can make up anything when it comes to cause and effect, in my opinion. Okay? This empowers the person to reinterpret their experiences based on their actual chosen goals. What was your goal? Why didn't they lock us out of the room? Why did you want to get up? Oh, because I was depressed. I was depressed because of my childhood trauma. That's what people say. But in Adlerian psychology, trauma does not exist. He dispelled the myth for you to even say trauma. So he basically said, no one has traumas. Everyone has an end goal in place. And the reason why you are where you are is because of that actual end goal that you set. It basically says everything is your fault, because it is. Most people believe in this concept of an external God. They go and they say, I'm going to pray to God. God's going to give me all these things that I've asked for. But that's not the case. When you pray to God, you're praying to yourself. Because whenever you pray, praying is determined by how you feel. That's what prayers actually are. I did a video in the past. I'll post a link in my description below to the video I talked about the different types of praying. Feeling is actual prayers. The way that you feel programs your hormone distribution, your chemical composition, and it's telling your brain what to give you based upon the pharmacy that you call your mind. This is how this thing works. So if you looked at your life and you said, okay, my life can be changed in an instant. My life can go towards a brand new way if I just looked at myself differently. Okay? Think about this in terms of autoimmune disease. Let's link this in terms of autoimmune disease. This is going to be a big thing for everyone. All right? Teleology is the idea that systems within your body operate with a certain purpose or towards a goal. It's kind of like saying my body is optimized to be infinite, to power me, to move me towards the end goal of me having a wonderful experience of life. I cannot have this experience unless my body is producing what I need to produce in the way that it's supposed to produce so I can do what I need to do. So basically, in both of these different concepts, let's think about autoimmune disease. You have the traditional etiological view, causes. If you are sick with autoimmune disease, what you're going to do, you're going to focus on the triggers, like your genetics, like your infections, environmental toxins. You're going to say, I have mold in the corners. I have the air pollution around me is bad. The water is bad. The food is lesser than. You're looking for some sort of external cause to find a trigger. So all of a sudden, autoimmune disease is when your immune system misidentifies itself as a threat to itself, and it begins to harm itself. So what's happening is you're saying all of these factors on the outside are causing me to harm myself. That's what you're saying. You're blaming somebody, okay? The teleological side of this, it views your immune system as a part of a goal-oriented, self-regulating system. That means it's already whole. That then means autoimmune disease is going to reflect a breakdown in self-identity or purpose alignment. You're changing the purpose of your immune system. You're basically telling it to kill you. You doing that. You see what I'm saying? Etiological, Freudian perspective is saying, here's the cause of my effects. Teleological, Adlerian perspective is saying, I am the cause of my effects. There's no outside causes. There's only inner causes. Do you understand this? There is no inner worry, because what happens to people is they're going to say, well, I was worried about this thing or this thing. You were worried about that thing. What you were worried about was the response you were going to get from the hole on the outside. You're worried about the outside. You're not worried about the inside. So what that means is you're literally saying your immune system. On this side, it's going to say system. A system, and I'll put it in I'll put a system that's self-regulating. Adlerian psychology. I'll compare it to everything from medicine, from finances. I'll compare it. In terms of Freudian perspective, it's focusing on triggers. People are so caught up in triggers. People are so worried and concerned about triggers. You said something like this. You spoke like that. Why you raised your voice? Why you looked at me like that? Why you frown your face up at me like this? So what? That's that perspective. People are looking at the causes, and they're constantly sitting there saying, this is the cause of my effect. Your bad attitude, and your this, and your that is causing me to do this. Okay, well, sure. What if I just never gave any power or attention to it? Because my goal is to not give attention to it. My goal is to have harmony. If my goal is to have harmony, you're irrelevant. Because I'm not worried about how you feel. Let's talk about that. In Adlerian psychology, how you feel is your task. How you feel is your task. How you make others feel is their task. Let me get you to understand what I just said. How you feel is your task. No matter what, whether it's rain, sleet, snow, thunderstorm, hurricane, tornado, no matter what is occurring, you are in control of how you respond. You are always in control of how you feel. Always. There is never a doubt in my mind that somebody else is responsible for what you are putting out. There is no doubt in my mind that anybody on the outside is not responsible for anything that you feel on the inside. It's all you. Once you actually come down to the realization that you are making yourself feel sad, that you are constantly in control of your own system, maybe you'll make a different choice to say, what is this for? What am I doing this for? Why am I doing this? I'm acting this way because I'm aiming for something. Why am I aiming to be sad? Why am I aiming to be sick? Most of the time it's resentment. I'm just telling you how this works. Based upon how your mind works, your mind goes from thinking. I'll put this in concept like this. I'll put TH, and I'll put think, do, be. All right, you have thinking brain, doing, you have being. This is going to be the limbic brain, the emotional brain, the chemical brain. This is going to be the frontal cortex. The thinking brain is going to be the frontal cortex. Let me put frontal cortex. And then being, your habit mind. That's going to be your cerebellum. This is going to be where you look at the subconscious mind. Subconscious programming is based upon habitual thinking. You'll have your conscious mind in the frontal lobe. And then your emotions are going to be chemical. Now, how is all of this working based upon simple psychology? I'm explaining to you the concept of acidity and alkalinity. There's just two sides. And the one side in between is neutral. The neutrality is the coherence. You have got to find coherence. So here in the concept of teleological coherence, there was a study. Iranian researchers did this, where they proposed that teleological coherence, which is the alignment of psychological, neurological, and immunological systems toward a specific unified purpose, is essential for you to be healthy. In autoimmune patients, this coherence breaks down because the simple fact, your immune system fails to distinguish self from non-self. There is what's called psychological stress and lack of self-knowledge correlate with immune dysregulation. This is showing you that a lack of spirituality, a lack of you not knowing who you really are. You don't know who you are. You also don't know from whose you are. So because of that, you're not understanding that when you say I am, you're speaking the mind of God. There is no separate mind of God. When I tell you I am Fidelis Tinoka II, that says that right now God is Fidelis Tinoka II. God is now functioning through me, and I know it. So because I know it, I'm projecting that out to you, whoever you are. You can be Mike, you can be Sarah, you can be Drea, you can be Michelle. It doesn't matter who you are. Once you say I am, that means God is. The two most important words in the language are I am. So, in this study, patients with low integrative self-knowledge, which is awareness of past, present, and future self, they showed higher stress and more symptoms. Somehow, you can't project a natural ability to use your imagination, but your imagination is the mind of God. If you can't use your imagination, I don't know what you thinking, because you're still using it whether you know you're using it or not. How you're using it is up to you. It's not up to anybody else. It's only up to you. So it suggests that autoimmune disease is not just some random malfunction of your autoimmune system. It's called manifestations of deeper disharmony, where the body systems lose sight of their shared purpose. You don't have a shared purpose. Now let's start to talk about success and failure. What is success? What is failure? Because, as I said, how you feel is your task. How you make others feel is their task. But in Freudian, you can say that someone yelled at me. Someone yelled at me, and that made me sad. That's essentially what you see people who are victims think. Someone yelled at me, so they raised their voice at me. Why are you screaming at me? And because that person did that, or whatever they deemed as disrespectful, these are people that sue other people. These people that have lawsuits for any and everything, complain about any and everything. One of the things I talked to my best friend, to my brother, we talked about ungrateful people. People that have no sense of gratitude at all. People that think that just because they arrived on the planet and because they're breathing, they need to be served. They need to be treated. Let me tell you something about people like this. And this is the crazy part. If you actually understand universal law, you serve them anyway with kindness. You still do it. Well, let me tell you, people like that don't last very long. They don't last very long in terms of aliveness. They don't last very long in terms of success, because it's impossible for them to have any. But if you understand the universal law, you realize you serve people regardless of the fact if they deserve it or not. Just because you're serving the whole, the higher order of things. That's why you're a creator. People who are ungrateful, people who get their rent covered, their bills paid, they can get Section 8, they can get food, they can get groceries, they can get whatever they need. They don't have service on one hand, but they're receiving something on the opposite end. These are people who are fraudsters, or people who are scammers. I was involved years ago with money laundering fraudsters, but I was attempting to get funding from our wellness center. And these scammers were saying, we're going to give you this, we're giving you this, but they were just using me as a phone person the entire time, which I had no idea because of my ignorance and my naivety. I was just naive. I was young in that concept of business. I didn't understand. But because of that fact, people can smell that a mile away. And they use me. Rightfully so. I had to learn. You know, I was the right person doing the wrong thing. So it still turned out right. If I was the wrong person doing the right thing, it would have turned out wrong. So I'm grateful for the experience. Whether it was deemed good or bad, no matter. It got me to where I need to get to today, and it got me the understanding I need to have. Other people would just cry and fold it up and run to a cage and start hiding because they're too embarrassed to go out in front of other people because they're afraid of other people. Here's where the courage to be disliked takes precedence over everything. If you don't have that, it's going to show you that you'll make yourself sick just because you're embarrassed. You'll make yourself sick because you don't say anything. People who have hyperthyroidism, Hashimoto's disease. You don't have no type of disease. All you're doing is plugging up the energetic fuel that you have from the base of your spine to the top of your head. You're not saying what you're supposed to say. The creator's giving you instructions and you aren't speaking them outwardly. That's all that is. If you understood that whenever something comes into your head, it's supposed to come out of your mouth, it's because the person that's on the opposite end needs to hear it. And you just happen to be available for that concept, that statement to come out through you. That's it. Follow instructions from the creator, the higher order of things. Okay? So, in this case, let's talk about autoimmune issues in that regard. You have the system of the ANS. The ANS, which is autonomic nervous system. On one side, you have parasympathetic, which in this case would be what's called rest and digest. Parasympathetic. I'll just put rest, digest. On the opposite side, you have sympathetic. On this side, this says fight or flight. Here is the concept that I'm going to explain. I believe that in this case of cause and effect, you're going to stay in sympathetic resonance. Why? Because you're always looking at something on the outside to tell you why you are behaving in a way from the inside. You're looking on the outside. You're making the outer world bigger than the inner world if you are in sympathetic resonance. And that's because a person who is in fight or flight is looking at their environment, looking at their body, looking at how much time they have. Why is that? When you're in fight or flight and you're in a mode of survival, this is a mode people stay in for weeks, for months, for years at a time. What's happening to this person is they are looking at their environment to see where there's a threat. Then they're looking to see how much time they have to get away from the threat and find safety. Then after that concept, looking at their body to see if they're hurt. But the entire time, you're looking at something outside of you to give you some sort of peace of mind inside you. It's impossible. It starts off with the concept of who do you think you are? You think you are being governed by a God from the outside, but you're not. You're being governed by a God from the inside, which is yourself. So you're attempting to pass off the accountability of you being yourself, living for yourself, to somebody else or something else. It's impossible. It's against the universal law. So because of that, you stay for years on end in sympathetic resonance, fight or flight mode. There's with your concept of too much cortisol, too much adrenaline. And these things are useful in small amounts when you're supposed to have them, but they're not useful when you have it all day. It's only supposed to be a short stress response. And you're supposed to turn back off and go back to rest and digest. Norepinephrine, these things aren't bad, but when they're in excess, they're horrible for your body. So now if you were in parasympathetic, rest and digest, what would that mean? Literally, your mentality is, I'm creating my own environment. If you can look at it from a perspective of, who do you think you are? If you're not thinking that you're God, I don't understand. Did you accidentally cross the street this morning? Did you accidentally get up and drive your car to where you went to, work or wherever? You have to have an end goal to do that. You won't get up and do anything unless you first see it in your mind. That's how your mind works. So without you admitting to who you really are and saying, I'm the creator of my own reality, you have to look at the reality that you're creating. Say, I just told myself, I'm going to have coherence all day. I'm going to have the most wonderful day. I'm going to wake up in the morning, say I'm saying my gratitudes. I'm grateful for everything in my life. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful. No matter what happens to me, I'm going to feel my way through it. If emotions come, they arise, no problem. I'm great. When you think like that, all of a sudden, you are in rest and digest mode, because you know for a fact at any moment in time, you can calm yourself down. Deep breathing, deep diaphragm breathing, breathing through your nose instead of through your mouth. That's an instant way for you to get into parasympathetic rest and digest mode. Breathing through your mouth is going to cause you to be in sympathetic resonance the entire time. Why? Because you're panting whenever you're sprinting. I guarantee it. You start the process of breathing through your nose. And even when I have my mouthpiece in, when I'm playing basketball, I'm still, at times, I have to calm myself down, take a break. You got to keep the oxygen going from into the lungs and pumped up to the head, not in through the mouth and going down to the diaphragm. You don't need any air in here like that. That's not how that system's supposed to work. So that in itself is creating, parasympathetic is going to create those wonderful things like dopamine. Don't get it from your cell phone. You don't need it from your cell phone. Go outside and go smell the roses. Go outside and go walk the dog. Go exercise. You're going to get oxytocin. You're going to get vasopressin, HGH, things like that. Wonderful chemicals. These things are coming from you being in a different set of resonance with yourself. How you're viewing yourself is actually accurate. Okay? So this is where you start to learn that your immune system, simplicity, and this is what I'm saying, your immune system, the ANS, this is the perspective that people have. Trauma does not exist. There is no such thing. Unless you're talking about physical trauma. Physical trauma is when I hit something, or say I have my shoulder and I hit my shoulder against the board. That's going to be a trauma. That's trauma. Okay? Emotional trauma does not exist. Somebody made that word up just to give you another excuse to run from yourself, to run from accountability. That's what that is. No, it does not exist, y'all. You have stress. You have eustress, which is good stress. That's exercising. I'm pushing a sled. I'm lifting some weights. I'm doing some shoulder presses, some bicep curls, some squats. That's eustress. You have distress, which is I'm a damsel in distress. I'm running. I'm in fight or flight mode. Oh my God, somebody's coming to get me. That's distress. You have chemical stresses, which can be toxins. Meaning I don't go drink some petroleum or some alcohol, even though most of the food that you have in this country, many of the products you have in this country do have petroleum inside of it. Bad chemicals. They cause you to be sick. Food poisoning. That's chemical stress. Then you got physical stress, which is going to be a trauma, a traumatic event where I got in an accident. I fell off my bike. I got in a car accident. I hurt myself at the gym, something, but that's what trauma is. It's not somebody yelled at me when I was a child. That's not it. The past does not exist. You can't go into a time machine unless you close your eyes and you imagine yourself back 20 years ago, which you can do that. You can do that and change your perspective on things. But physically, you can't hop up in no little ship and come out the opposite side and be 5 years old. Don't worry about that. So, there is, when you're talking about immunity, you're talking about things in terms of just health. Let's talk about it in terms of wealth. Sometimes people have opportunities come to them because they have a desire or a goal to be wealthy. You have a goal to be a millionaire. What do you do if you have a goal to be a millionaire? You plan this goal out. 90 days, 12 weeks, maybe 12 months. You say, I'm going to get a skill. I'm going to learn how to sell something. I'm going to make a product or a service. I'm going to get this product or a service in front of as many people as I possibly can be. I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to be passionate about this product or service. I'm going to put everything out that I need to put out. I can use AI tools. I can use people to help me. I'm going to raise capital because I believe in my product so much. I'm going to go out and I'm going to go into the world to get this $1 million because I am a millionaire. You just said God is a millionaire. I'm a billionaire, so I say God is a billionaire because that's the stuff that I make. That's why I truly believe in. So I have to make products and services that I know will get me to the goal of a billionaire. I have to write down a plan every single day, check my money every single day, make sure I'm disciplined about my spending. I have to do things that get me to the end goal. Now, say you're in a Freudian perspective, talking about finances. I grew up poor. So because I grew up poor, my father didn't have any money, my mom didn't have any money, and I lived in a homeless shelter or whatever. They're going to say, because I had nothing, I can't have something. I'll say it again. Because I had nothing, I can't have something. That's going to be your excuse. You're literally going to use the excuse of your upbringing to say why you can't move forward in life. Well, my mom had diabetes and my father had cancer, so I'm going to have diabetes and I'm going to have cancer. No, your mother's lifestyle caused her to have diabetes and your father's lifestyle caused him to have cancer. So maybe you should change your lifestyle and don't live their lifestyle and you'll be healthy. You want more money? Maybe you should look at it and say, your father's skill, your mother's skill wasn't conducive enough to pay them back what they believe that they were worth. So because they didn't going to go get any more skills and get any better to serve people at a higher price point or believe in themselves more, they didn't do that. Just keep it 100. Don't lie. The concept of Adlerian psychology to me is a perspective on life that does not allow you to make excuses. You don't have them anymore. The reason why you aren't where you say you want to be is because you didn't put in enough effort to get where you desire to be. You didn't do the job the best you possibly could do the job. And that's why they didn't give you the job. I was so focused on making the NBA. I was going to all these different camps and also all these different trainers, and I was just putting in a lot of work. And ultimately, I didn't make it because I wasn't good enough to make it in that regard. Because I didn't set the goal of I wanted to make it by any means necessary. Probably when I was on the doorstep of doing it, I didn't want to do it anymore. Because I realized that my actual goal was just to be a person considered to make it. I didn't actually want to make it. There was no point in me going past that. I couldn't push myself past the discomfort of training constantly, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. When I realized I didn't want to do it anymore, I said, well, I guess this is it, because if I can't sacrifice the time or the energy to go through the process, I'm just wasting my time and everybody else's. So rather than that, give it back to them. And just be real with yourself. What do you want to do? I'm going to help people. Mainly athletes, celebrities, CEOs, entrepreneurs. I enjoy that. So let me go through that perspective. It's just my perspective. Am I upset? No, not the least bit. It taught me how to be disciplined. It taught me how to show up every day. It taught me how to be authentic. It taught me how to be expressive. That's all it taught me. I just realized that even after that, I'm still going to be a glorified employee in a way. And I don't want to be that. And you'll see the high-level athletes, they take their capital earned from their jobs and they go make their own brand and their own businesses. So they still become entrepreneurs. But I just didn't care to follow that pathway. I desired to make every athlete on this planet, every celebrity, every CEO, every entrepreneur as healthy as possible so that they can continue to build things and impact people the way I desire to see people be impacted. That was the goal. That's my end goal. I did not say because my father wasn't an athlete, I can't be an athlete because my mom wasn't. So what? There's too many excuses. Give them up. Okay? So, when you think about these two concepts, your immune system can be seen as a guardian of your own identity. Your bank account, a guardian of your own identity, your self-image. You can have a high self-image, a low self-image. So a high bank account, a low bank account. It's going to match. I promise you. It'll always match your self-image. Because your mind's job is to constantly reaffirm what belongs to you, the organism, the creature, you. Your brain's going to find some way to get you in harmony with what you believe you really are. So autoimmune conditions may reflect a breakdown in this purpose, where the system misinterprets its mission and starts to attack itself. What do? Self-betrayal. That's the concept. Self-betrayal. You said you wanted this. You said you were going to do this, but you did this instead. You said you wanted a harmonious relationship, but you went out and you found 10 other females to go sleep with, or 10 other guys to go sleep with, but you had one right here. You didn't want harmony. Your goal was to cause disharmony. That's why you did it. That's what happens. You have to look at yourself and be honest. You want harmony? Do what harmony asks for. That's what it asks for. Do it. You want wealth? Do what wealth asks for. You want health? Do what health asks for. Don't sit there and say that past causes, because I went through this process, I can't move forward. That's not how it works. Okay? So in this view, where you look at your immune system, it's not just fighting off intruders or fighting off threats. It's actually curating your boundaries of your selfhood, which basically define your physical, psychological identity. Okay? Let's keep going. All right, so let's see. Okay, so not to mention, there's implications for how you're going to do this. Because lastly, we're talking about relationships. And in the case of relationships, in etiology, this is the question you're going to see. The question in etiology, in past causes, it's going to say, why do I behave this way? You're going to start finding all types of things. When you say, why do I behave this way? Why do I treat my spouse like this? In etiology and relationships, it's rooted in the past. So you're asking, why do I behave this way in my relationship? You're looking backwards for answers. Your focus is going to be past experiences, your so-called traumas, your attachment styles. Meaning you fear abandonment because my parents divorced when I was young. My parents divorced when I was 21. I actually went to my father's house to ask him to sign the divorce paperwork for my mom. She was so miserable in her relationship. I don't know much about their past relationship. Obviously, it must have been harmonious because she wasn't happy. But I love my father. I love my mother. But they just didn't together. But I am still with the same lady I was been with for the last 12 years. We were married, divorced, now remarried. Because I figured out if I make the goal harmony and purification and coherence and unconditional love, I'm going to achieve this goal. Because God, which was in me, is going to help me. So implication is behavior is seen as a result of some unresolved wound or conditioning. That's basically what you're seeing in therapy right now. Oh, well, maybe it was something that my mom was this or my father was this. Okay, look. What it can do for you is can offer insight, and you can then have a celebration of the passion, compassion for patterns. Now, compassion to me means celebration of creation. That's what it means to me, meaning I celebrate my creation. So I can celebrate the patterns that I've created. But it can also do this. It can reinforce victim mentality or determinism. Because you're going to say, I am this way because of my past. You have to get past that because the past is gone. So just because your mama and daddy did something don't mean you as an adult can do this thing. You get to choose your pathway. That's etiology. Why do I behave in this relationship? Why do I behave this way in this relationship? Looking for somebody, looking for answers. Here is teleology. This is what you call a parasympathetic and Adlerian psychological perspective, a creator mentality. It's saying, I'm driven by purpose. So what am I trying to achieve through this behavior in my relationship? I'm trying to achieve harmony or disharmony. You know if you're petty. You know if you like chaos or you like drama. You know if you like that. If you like that, that means that's your end goal. So your focus is you present present goals, desired outcomes, emotional strategies. I seek harmony in my relationship. So I'm always telling my partner the truth. I'm always being vulnerable. I'm being accountable. And I'm being transparent. If it's my fault and I know it's my fault, hey, she ain't got to call me out. She ain't got to call me up. It's on me. Hey, I messed up. Hey, I dropped the ball. I could have done this better. And I didn't do it to the best of my ability. I apologize. I'm vulnerable. I don't know how to do this. Can you help me? I'm transparent. My clear goal is to go here and do this thing. I'm gonna go. Whether you want me to or not, I'm still going. You're welcome to come if you want to, but I don't care if you come or not. I feel this way. I don't really care how you feel, because I'm not responsible for that. But I feel like this. So every day I'm gonna show up and smile on my face. We're gonna get this done, and I'm going to be this person that's going to be dependable, and I'm going to commit. You don't have to worry if I'm gonna be there or not. I got you. That's called loyalty. That's what I believe in. The relationships, you're gonna have past causes. So primary example, avoiding intimacy. Let's use the example of avoiding intimacy. If you're in this perspective, etiology, you avoid intimacy because of, say, childhood neglect, sexual assault, sexual abuse. I was abused when I was younger. I was raped when I was this. My parents didn't give me a hug whenever I needed a hug. And so it can be insightful, but still passive. Still not going to do anything. You're just saying, oh, well, you can bring light to that subject, but it doesn't have anything required to change. It just says, here's what happened. There's nothing moving forward. Teleology, on the other hand, says avoiding intimacy. Okay, well, you can interpret it as I was doing it to protect myself from rejection. That's why I avoid intimacy, because I'm doing it because I was protecting myself from something. That's active and changeable. That's called accountability. I was doing it because of this. That's why. It's powerful for you to have this way where you say you can use both of them. One, to find an example of patterning and learn why things in the past occurred. Great. But teleology is going to help you reframe those choices that you made and behaviors align with your growth perspective. That's what you're going to see. That's why you need to have the perspective of this one to this one. You have to use it like a wave, like an energy wave. And so that's only the concept that you're going to go to get. So if you guys found any value in this video, thank you guys for joining me this afternoon. Link in my description below. If you're looking for a one-on-one detoxification program. Nothing than that. Until next video. Thank y'all for joining me. Peace.